If I were working with a small amount of money, the universe would be huge compared to the universe of possible ideas I work with now.
To everyone who finds the current investment climate hard and difficult and somewhat confusing, I would say welcome to adult life.
Charlie Munger, the sage of wise investments, steps forth from the shadows to impart invaluable knowledge about navigating the labyrinth of finance with small amounts of capital.
In my whole adult life, I've never hoarded cash waiting for better conditions. I've just invested in the best thing I could find, and I don't think I'm going to change now. And the Daily Journal's used up its cash. Now, Berkshire has excess cash. Quite a bit of excess cash. But it's not doing that because thinks it knows how to time investments. It just can't find anything it can stand buying.
Well, I would use the approach that I think I'm using now of trying to search out businesses where I think they're selling at the lowest price relative to the discounted cash they would produce in the future. But if I were working with a small amount of money, the universe would be huge compared to the universe of possible ideas I work with now.
What kind of investing?
Passive investing.
Oh, huge. That's another thing that's coming. We have a new bunch of emperors, and they're the people who vote the shares in the index funds. Maybe we can make Larry Fink and the people at Vanguard Pope. And all of a sudden, we've had this enormous transfer of voting power to these passive index funds. That is going to change the world.
I was working with a tiny, tiny, tiny amount of money. And so I would pour through volumes of businesses, and I would find one or two that I could put $10,000 into or $15,000 into that were just ridiculous. They were ridiculously cheap. And obviously, as the money increased, the universe of possible ideas started shrinking dramatically. The times were also better for doing it at that time.
With a methodical analysis of the financial landscape, he shares the precise blueprint, unraveling the intricacies that can transform modest investments into burgeoning portfolios.
I think the current scene is obscene. I think there's too much mania, there's too much chasing after easy money. There's too much misleading sales material about investments. There's too much on the television emphasizing speculation in stocks. Well, yeah, I think that's right. A brilliant man who can't get any money from other people and is working with a very small sum probably should work in very obscure stocks, searching out unusual, mispriced opportunities. But, you could, that's such a small world. It may be a way for one person to come up, but it's a long slog. Well, they don't think very well about gambling either. The standard human condition is a lot of miscognition.
And there are ways to make hay of that, or?
Yes, you can take advantage of other people. You can improve your own life by eliminating your miscognitions. We could see, if we looked carefully at our own companies, that their advertising was working way better than other advertising. Just we weren't paying enough attention.
So is it too late?
I don't know. I don't know everything, Well, there are a whole lot of things I don't think about. And one of them is companies that are losing $2 or $3 billion a year and going public. It's not my scene.
Have you looked, so you're not interested in Uber or companies like that necessarily?
Well, I have to be interested when they're that important and sweep the world and change practice. But I don't have to invest in everything I'm interested in. I'm looking for things where I think I can predict what's going to happen with a high degree of accuracy. And I have no feeling that I have the ability to do that with Uber.
His words cascade with the wisdom of the ages, resonating through the ears of those seeking financial growth, inspiring them to seize the reins of opportunity and steer toward a prosperous horizon.
I think if you're working with a small amount of money, with exactly the same background that Charlie and I have, same ideas, same whatever ability we have, I think you can make very significant sums. But as soon as you start getting the money up into the millions, many millions, the curve on expectable results falls off just dramatically. But that's the nature of it. You've got to, when you get up to things you can put millions of dollars into, you've got a lot of competition looking at that, and they're not looking as I did when I started. When I started, I went through the pages of the manuals page by page. I mean, I probably went through 20,000 pages in the Moody's Industrial, Transportation, Banks, and Finance manuals. And I did it twice. And I actually, looked at every business. I didn't look very hard at some. Well, that's not a practical way to invest tens or hundreds of millions of dollars. So I would say if you're working with a small sum of money and you're really interested in the business, willing to do the work, you will find something. If there's no question about it in my mind. You will find some things that promise very large returns compared to what we will be able to deliver with large sums of money.
Well, it was perfectly obvious, and he'd made so much money in the other technique that it was hard for him to leave something that had worked so well. But it was not going to scale. So when he started looking for investment values in great businesses that were temporarily under pressure, it changed everything for the better. Now we could scale up to the big time.
Within this strategic council unfolds a tapestry of financial acumen, inviting everyone to delve into the realms of investment strategy, where the judicious allocation of small sums can forge a path to substantial wealth.
Another issue, of course, that's happened in the world of stock picking, where all this money and effort goes into trying to be rational, is that we've had a really horrible thing happen to the investment counseling class. And that is, these index funds have come along and they basically beat everybody. And not only that, the amount by which they beat everybody is roughly the amount of cost of running the operation and making the changes in investments. So we have a whole profession that is basically being paid for accomplishing practically nothing. This is very peculiar. This is not the case with bowel surgery or even the defense bar in the law or something. They have a whole profession for the chosen activity they've selected. They can't do anything. Now, in the old days, the people in the profession always had some of this problem. And they rationalized as follows. We are saving our clients from the insurance salesman and the stockbroker. The standard stockbroker that serves the active trader. And they were saving people from the life insurance salesman and the hustling stockbroker who liked active trading. And I suppose in the sense that the investing class is still saving those people from an even worse fate. But it is very peculiar when a whole profession that works so hard and is so admirable, and the members of which we are delighted when they marry into our families, and they just can't do what the profession is really trying to do, which is get better than average results. How is that profession handling this terrible situation as index investing gets more and more popular, and including by a lot of fancy places? I'll give you a very simple answer. They're handling it with denial.
The spotlight narrows on Charlie Munger, a master of strategic finance, as he offers the map to a treasure trove of financial growth, encouraging us all to employ prudence and wisdom in our investment journey.
The reason we're not buying this, we can't buy anything at prices we're willing to pay. It's just that simple. Other people are bidding the price up. And a lot of the buying is not by people who really plan to own them. A lot of it is fee-driven buying. And private equity buys things so they can have more fees by having more things under management. Of course, it's a lot easier to buy something you use somebody else's money. We're using our own money, or at least that's the way we think of it. And so, but we're not. By the way, it's not a tragedy that Berkshire has some surplus money they're not investing. And you can argue that the little old Daily Journal, what a good thing it was we had 30 million extra coming in from a foreclosure boom. And that we invested it shrewdly. It gives us a lot of flexibility. And by the way, that piled up money helps us in wooing these governmental bodies we're selling the software to. We look more responsible with the extra wealth. And we are more responsible with the extra wealth. But if the shareholders who are worried about the future because it looks complicated and difficult and they're hazard, I want to say to them what my old torts professor said to me, Charlie. He'd say, Charlie, tell me what your problem is and I'll try and make it more difficult for you. And he did me a favor by treating me that way. And I'm just repeating his favor to you. When you're thinking the thoughts you're doing, at least you're thinking in the right direction. You're worried about the right things. All you people that are worried about the inflation and the future of the republic and so forth.
In this age of financial opportunity, Charlie Munger stands as a beacon, guiding us to navigate the maze of investments, reminding us that even small amounts, when invested wisely, can yield bountiful harvests.
Just think about it for a minute. You've all been to fancy educational institutions. I'll bet you there's hardly one in the audience who knows why that thing failed. That's a pretty ridiculous demonstration I'm making. How can you not know that? It's one of the main activity of America, an obvious and important failure. Surely we can explain it. You have to have stayed awake in your freshman college courses to answer that question. But if you ask that question at a Department of Finance, at a leading place, the professors wouldn't answer it right. Now I'm going to leave you that question because I want you perplexed. And I will go on to another issue. But that's one you should be able to answer. It shows how hard it is to be rational on something very simple. How hard it is, how many kind of crazy ideas people have and they don't work. You don't even know why they don't work, even though it's perfectly obvious if you've been properly educated. And by the way, my definition of being properly educated is being right when the professor is wrong. Anybody can spit back what the professor tells you. The trick is to know when he's right and when he's wrong. That's the properly educated person. And of course, they're frequently wrong, particularly in the soft sciences. In fact, if you look at a modern elite institution, it's fair to say that a lot of the faculty are a little crazy. It's so left-wing now in the humanities. And it's very peculiar. And that's another thing. Why should 90% of the college professors in the humanities be very left-wing? I leave that question for you too. Well, I don't think I have a one-size-fits-all investment for. I think some people are gifted enough that they can invest in hard-to-value, difficult things. Other people, I think, would be very wise to have more modest ambitions in terms of what they choose to deal with. So I think you have to figure out your level of skill or the level of skill your advisor has, and that should enter the equation. But to everyone who finds the current investment climate hard and difficult and somewhat confusing, I would say welcome to adult life. And you're thinking the right way. Of course, it is hard. It's going to be way harder for the group that's graduating from college now, for them to get rich and stay rich and so forth, it's going to be way harder for them than it was for my generation. Think what it costs to own a house in a desirable neighborhood in a city like Los Angeles. It's not and I think we'll probably end up with higher income taxes too, and so on. No, I think the investment world is plenty hard, and I don't think in my lifetime, 98 years, it was the ideal time to own a diversified portfolio of common stocks that updated a little by adding the new ones that came in, like the Apples and the Alphabets and so forth. And I'd say the people got maybe 10 or 11% if you did that very intelligently before inflation, and maybe 9% after 8 or 9%. That was a marvelous return. No other generation in the history of the world ever got returns like that. And I don't think the future is going to give the guy graduating from college this year nearly that easy an investment opportunity. I think it's going to be way harder.